Well, to be honest, I responded to the film 30 years ago. Chabrol made a film called La Femme Infidèle, and the unfaithful wife or the unfaithful woman, depending on how you look at it. And I always loved the film. It was my sort of film, you know. And I thought about it over the years, about possibly remaking it. And I thought, well, I don't think I should do, because it was so good, you know. And so for years, I didn't touch it. It is quite different from the French movie in that there's a last act that didn't exist in the French movie. And also, the affair with the lover, you barely saw in the French movie. So that's something that has been changed and enlarged, you know.
Hang on.
You do an enormous amount of research before you do the film. I have a book of ideas. I have like an ideas book that before every movie, I have about this much of pages to go through. You go through the screenplay and think, well, how can I make it specific? How can I use this bit of business? How can I use that bit of business? All the way through the screenplay. You know, I have references. I have photographic references or a bit out of a film. Like, for example, I saw a picture of a girl in a bath. I just saw, I don't know, at a photographic gallery or something, and I thought, well, that's how I'm going to photograph her in the bath. That's how, well, the way the opening shot will be.
At the very beginning of the film, Adrian sets up there's a montage of one of these images, the community, the house, the little pond, the dog, you know, it all feels like everything is right, as it should be.
Don't forget to put it down when you finish.
I'm quite a normal family guy myself, and certainly that's something I brought to this part was the child and the wife and the house and the living situation, and people going to school and pressures and you know, all of that, which most people in the world deal with.
I've been practicing.
It's spectacular, kiddo.
He had a kind of a serenity, a kind of a niceness that I hadn't seen before. I'd always sort of associated him with a swagger, if you like. And so I thought it was very interesting the way he'd been used in the film, and I think if you look at him in this one, I think you'll be very surprised at the way he plays. And we did everything to avoid what I'd seen before in his performances.
He was talking about Richard Gere for Edward, and I said, well, that would work really well because we'd known each other, you know, we had an 18-year-old friendship from the Cotton Club days, and playing his wife, it really helps to have a backstory between the two people for real. So my homework was half done.
And you don't have to go through a period of kind of, God, am I going to feel okay doing this and doing that and exposing this and showing that? That period was gone, especially with Diane and me. It was, you know, it was a given. And we haven't seen each other much over the years, but it was, you know, very, very easy for us to fall into that. And again, you know, we'd been through long relationships, we'd been through marriages, we'd been through stuff. Do we know what this was like? And we had that history.
She was just very sympathetic. I mean, she was very vulnerable. You really liked her. And I think, given that this woman has a child of 8, and she's happily married, she's got an awful lot working against her from the off. So you need to be pretty damn certain that they're likable. And also, she's a fine actress, you know, so that was the main thing, was just her sympathetic quality.
I afforded Olivier I had to fill in a lot of blanks and understand what he meant by what he said. And then we would increase the dialogue more than usual because we didn't have a shorthand. You couldn't be colloquial about it. So we had to be very specific about everything, which could be more awkward than what you're actually filming, discussing it. But, you know, we had to be sure about what we were going to see, do, and expose or not expose in the camera, and you know, it can be really awkward. But it can be fun, and he kept it fun. You know, he blushes harder than I do. I know it's burning me.
And he'll come in. Action.
Close your eyes.
My mother makes me chicken. Her chicken makes me laugh.
I'm gonna cut it there because he's
Just
I'll give you another mark. You're leaning into the frame.
I'm too much here.
The most ordinary, everyday, mundane things are much more sort of interesting when you watch them from a French person or an Italian person. The gestures are different. The sense of humour is different. Ordinary stuff is fascinating to watch, and it certainly was with him. And I think it helped one understand why she might have leapt into this affair, you know, because he's just very beguiling, really, doing ordinary stuff.
The first meeting with her, I didn't play it like my character is attracted to her. It's just, you know, when you bump in somebody into each other in the street, you say, oh, sorry, oh, you hurt your knee, or you want some help, what can I do? But you don't say, wow, she's very attractive, I'm going to try to seduce her.
Well, the win was a nightmare, I'd say, and starting off with the win was pretty brutal, because like we had 6, 7, 8 wind machines, you can't hear a thing, and the communication is nil with everybody. So screaming yourself hoarse and everybody's bad-tempered, and that was, believe me, was a challenge.
Well, I thought they were trying to rub me out. I thought they were trying to recast the film and make it an insurance situation. I mean, it was just unbelievable because at one point they had this wind machine that was a rocket. It wasn't just a propeller, it was literally a jet engine. And when it would crank up, it could blow a car over. I mean, that's how powerful it was. And I got to the set, and the crew, I hadn't met anyone yet, and they were just, they were sorry for me. They were sad for me. They were worried that this was it. It was going to be an early wrap, and we were going to recast, and in a week we'll come back, and we won't have that rocket blower thing. We got rid of the jet engine. Just the propellers were enough. But, I mean, I was literally blown over several times, and it was many days of that. And you know, just New York City debris in my teeth and my eyes, everywhere. I'd already filmed a movie's worth of stuff. I was sort of done. By the time Richard came, I was exhausted and like, thank God you're here. Richard came to shoot, and whew, the king's in the kingdom, and I can relax now and sit back and not be, you know, #1 on the call sheet.
Action!
I don't know if your wife mentioned we were here about a week and a half ago.
Yeah, she told me.
About Paul Martel.
Yeah, the man who was missing, right?
Well,
yeah.
He isn't missing anymore. His body was discovered last weekend.
God, that's terrible.
Richard came into the movie halfway through, and so we had all kind of been Adrianized through the first half of the movie, and after the second day, Richard called me to the trailer and said, what's going on? You know, we've half a day behind. After I've been here a day and a half, we're still on the same scene from yesterday. We've done it 6. What's going? You know? And I said, Richard, you'll see. It's you know. And within a week, he had called me back to his trailer and said, I see. You're right. It works.
Adrian's very. I was gonna say he's very clear of what he wants, but he's not really clear. He's more bulldog-like, and that he just bites down on something and he won't let go. He just shakes it until he thinks he's got what he wants. We'll do very many more takes than on 95% of the movies that I've done. I'm sure with Diane the same thing. And in difficult scenes, you know, normally in a film you like 3, 4 takes of a difficult emotional scene and you've got it. He'd be pushing to take 20, to take 25, and it's like, you know, you'd feel brutalized in the process, but I never doubted that it was to the best end.
And I try desperately, even with the shooting, I try to sort of grab moments that are, you'll see someone, do that again, that's fabulous, again, so that you don't lose it. I mean, the thought, for example, when she goes in and gives him his sweater, the guilty present, that there's no reason for her giving him the present. But the amount of thought that went into the color of that sweater was a huge amount of thought that went into it, because I wanted it to be sort of awful, really. It's something that he wouldn't have chosen himself, and so he looks, when he puts it on, you kind of like him for having put on this awful sweater. Do you see what I'm saying? But then it couldn't be too awful. It couldn't be too sort of horrendous, otherwise we wouldn't have bought it.
What do you think?
So that sort of scary blue.
The keeper.
Worked.
No.
That's all right. Good. I know you're not.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
There's a moment in the train when she's coming home, having slept with the lover for the first time, and she's remembering with guilt, with exhilaration, with sadness, with this fabulous mixture of emotions. She's remembering the details of the time when they first had sex, when they first screwed. And the fascinating thing is that she was so good on the train. Her face, it was pretty much close up on her face, and her face was sort of at times hysterical, at times crying, at times laughing, and her face mirrored everything that had happened in the love scene. And so I really didn't have to show the love scene almost, because you could see it on her face.
The train sequence with Diane, where she's remembering Paul, was one of the true brilliant moments. Shooting on a train in New York, you commandeer a train, and it's very expensive, and you have to do it on Saturdays and Sundays and off-peak hours and all that kind of thing. So we had a train for our day of 2 days we had filming, but and as always, other things take too much time. We were down to, here's a half an hour, we can quick shoot this one little moment, and Adrian hadn't ever even told anybody. We thought it was just her riding the train back from. And Adrian kind of ran up to her just before we shot and whispered in her ear about, you're thinking about what you've just made love, and put her into this frame of mind where she was able to go through a series of emotions that described a woman having an affair for the first time in 10 years, just this incredibly complicated, wonderful thing. But it was magical. It just exploded. Nobody knew it was coming. I don't think Diane knew it was coming, and it's brilliant.
When he's done the murder, he's going to meet his wife in the play, and there was a lot of people were saying, well, come on, let's get him to the play, let's push this forward. And there was an argument for that, but I just wanted to see this guy frantic and ripping his clothes off and the buttons bouncing, he's ripping the buttons off and he's changing his shirt. And I wanted to see the reality of the panic of what would happen after the murder, and not gloss over those details. So then somebody said, and it wasn't me, it was Mac actually, the producer, he said, well, what if the bathroom was at the school? Which was such a genius idea, because now he's in the bathroom and you can hear the sounds of the play coming through the walls of the bathroom, which added huge kind of jeopardy to what he was doing. And so suddenly it was a much better scene.
Set your sights above the ground, walk tall, dream loud. Take your mark and go. Focus on the journey.
You okay?
One thing I've always thought is that my job really, I should be called a selector, not a director. I've always thought that you have all of this stuff offered up to you, whether it's locations, whether it's wardrobe, whether it's actors, whatever the hell it is. And so what you're doing is selecting, and you're choosing a road to go down.